The FIDE World Cup knockout tournament takes place in Goa in India from the 1st to the 25th of November. It's always a tremendous event, really exciting. And the top 3 will qualify for the Candidates Tournament 2026. Now, those are the 3 big prizes. I can imagine one player who is very much looking forward to playing is Vincent Keymer, the German #1 player. Now, if you remember, Vincent narrowly missed out on qualification for the candidates at the FIDE Grand Swiss Tournament in Samarkand, and it must have been tough for him to see his compatriot Matthias Blubaum go through and nab a spot for the candidates. I have to say, Matthias played very well, deserved it, but well, it was very close. Yet, after that failure in Samarkand, actually Vincent has been playing incredibly well. He had a very good result playing for Germany in the European Team Championship in Batumi. And he's just finished playing in the European Club Cup in Rhodes. And those results have catapulted him into the top 10 in the world. In fact, all the way to number 4 in the world, if you have a look at the live rating list. So Carlsen #1, Nakamura #2, Caruana #3, and Keymer #4, just ahead of Anish Giri, who's also on very good form. So what I'd like you to do is have a look at a couple of Vincent's games from this European Club Cup. And he really was on blistering form. He scored 5 out of 6, 5 wins, 1 loss. And he played really fearlessly, sort of embracing complexity and handling the positions for the most part with great ease. So let me show you these games. I mean, they really are exciting. So I hope you enjoy these. First game I'd like to show you, Keymer was playing black, and he's playing Rauf Mamedov, who is seriously strong grandmaster from Azerbaijan. So it starts out as, well, I was going to say Gioco Piano, but in fact White doesn't play the piano. He plays this, which can lead to some very, very sharp positions. So White is really going for it from the off. So he takes d4 and e5. Now, Black does best to counter with d5 in the centre, and it's known that taking on f6 and taking on c4 is actually fine for Black. So bishop b5. Now, the old move in the time of Anderson and Morphy was knight e4, and it's not bad. But knight d7 is, you could say, the modern continuation, and it's received a lot of attention over the last few years. You might recall a game I looked at on the channel, Wesley So against Noribek Abisatorov from the Sinkfield Cup, actually. But anyway, let's crack on. So castles. Now, that pawn can't be taken. Obviously, there's a pin here. Looks like there's a bit of a traffic jam, but watch what happens. Bishop e7. So Black is simply ready to castle, and then there'll be pressure here. Remember, Black is actually a pawn up in this position. Mamedov exchanged on c6, and knight takes d4. So these are rather comic positions. If c5, knight c6 traps the queen. Very nice. But knight b8 is the move. You see, it's important to cover the f5 square. Otherwise, bishop b7, knight f5 can already be a little bit uncomfortable. So knight b8, it looks very strange, but as I said, it uncovers the bishop, so the knight can't move to f5. Obviously protects c6, and he gets ready to push those central pawns. Now, in that game, a beautiful game played by Wesley So, you might remember it. Wesley played knight c3, and the game went like this. And, well, Wesley managed to gets a nice initiative on the king side, and this was the key move, c4, which just blocked those central pawns. What a beautiful game. Of course, there are improvements for black, but it was very nice. But Mamedov played queen f3. Now, I think he knew very well what he was doing, because in fact he's following a game of Keymer's that was played this year in Germany. c5, so these pawns start to roll, and backed up by the two bishops, they can be very powerful. And this game I mentioned before, Theodoru against Keymer, went castles, c4, and, well, the game actually ended in a draw. I mean, around about this stage, in fact, you know, it does look a little bit better for white, but Keymer held it. But he'd obviously done his homework, and instead of castling, he played bishop b7. Well, it's very nice for the bishop to be on the long diagonal. c4. So that exploits the pin. And just like Wesley did, Mamedov's looking to blockade those pawns and in that way kind of nullify the bishops. But this is a great move from Keymer now. If you play something like c6, then the knight goes in. Watch the e-file. And if castles, bishop f4, you know, white is better, and that bishop is dreadful. But this is a key move, knight c6, great move. And if pawn takes, then the knight just plunges in here, and black takes on d5, and actually this is a really funny position. You could actually sack this, and the king runs away. He's in relative safety, and then it'll be black's turn on the g-file. Black has excellent compensation. So queen g3 instead, d4, okay, fixing the pawns, but opens up that bishop. And again, offering the g-pawn. And the idea is this, that basically black is just going to run to the queen side, even give up an exchange. But black has tremendous compensation, because that knight is offside. And these pieces look fantastic. Soon, white's king is going to come on a serious attack. But it's really enterprising play from Keymer. You know, played a very sure hand. Rook e1, a6. Now, if that knight goes back to a3, well, again, black is going to send the king over here and then storm the pawns on the king side. And it's that bishop that makes the difference. Black has tremendous play here. So Mamedov absolutely went for it with knight c3, but Keymer was not phased. He just started taking material. Now, Mamedov obviously was hoping that he'd be able to get some attack here, but Keymer just took these pieces, took that one. Now rook f6 just guards this. I mean, there were alternatives, but actually, you know, black is fine here. Not that that'd be easy to see at first glance, but Vincent plays with a very sure hand. Queen d4, good move. Threatening here. Bishop takes, queen takes, and rook d1, knight d4, and here Mamedov resigned. So at the moment, Keymer has 3 minor pieces against a rook, so that should be a winning material advantage. There's nothing doing at the other end of the board, and if pawn takes pawn, then it's black's turn to attack. And yeah, g3, and yeah, it's possible just to grab material, and black is winning. So yeah, a very sure performance from Vincent. Let me show you just another game from this European Club Cup in Rhodes. So Vincent playing white against Eitan Rozen, playing for an Israeli team from Beersheva. Okay, so Vincent playing white. Okay, very standard. English. And both sides fianchetto. And then white plays d4, making the first break in the position. Always like playing this position with white, actually. Nice space advantage. The problem is this square for black. It's often possible to use that. Anyway, h5. Well, it looks like black is going for it here, wants to stir up trouble. But Vincent just plays h3. Good reaction. So that after h4, white can just play g4. And the nice thing about playing h3 is that white can now play bishop e3. This is where you want the bishop to support that knight. And knight g4 is not available. So white is basically consolidating the position in the middle of the board. And you can see that those bishops just kind of streak down to the queen side. And that's a bit unpleasant for black. So black decides to play d6, giving up a pawn. Now I guess it's possible to play rook b8 here. Maybe giving that, rook b4. It's probably good for white, but tricky. But anyway, black decides just to give the rook in the corner. Now if castles, then bishop h3. That's good for black. So f3. Now, black is the exchange down, but those bishops could be useful. And also, these pawns make a pretty odd impression. They're quite sensitive. But how Keymer handles this is very impressive. So b3, and black just goes for it. And knight e4. So he wants to break through. So if pawn takes, then black has serious compensation in that position. Two bishops. Very nice compact pawn structure. So rook c2 played. Knight g3. So although white is two exchanges up, it's a tricky material balance actually. d4. And I just want to pause at one moment in a second. I mean, this is very bravely played by Vincent. Just going crazy with the queen. Not easy to handle this one. Here is where I like you to have a think. I'm going to have a drink. So white to play, and I think Vincent's next move with white is very, very impressive. So white to play. What would you do next? Cheers. It takes a little time to appreciate what's going on in this position. You can chase an exchange of queens, but after queen h2, I would say it's not so clear. These bishops have potential. Black's king, crucially, is completely safe. This is coming. Maybe some knight comes in here. Tricky position. Vincent came up with a really clever move. Oh, and the other thing is you've got to watch out for this check and then a knight e3. So Vincent's move is really clever. Rook c5. Okay, well, what's the point of this? Well, there's a couple of ideas. One is that after, let me make a random move, king h7. Then queen c7 forces an exchange of queens. Now, an exchange of queens will make life a lot simpler for white because we've got connected pawns there, and well, white's king would then be very safe. So that should be game over. So we can see that's one of the reasons behind rook c5. It actually boxes in the king. I just realised it doesn't actually force an exchange of queens. Or does it? Queen here, then rook here. It does force an exchange of queens. Well, I wasn't wrong. It just, after this, the queen has to come back here. And yes, it is an exchange of queens, actually. So yeah, that's one of the points. It boxes in the queen. What else? What about knight e3? Well, I mean, queen c7 is still possible, but actually this is a nice move. Bishop g3. Hitting the queen, and then that really does force an exchange of queens. And there's another reason for rook c5, which we'll see now. Queen h2 was played, so understandably the queen wants to get out and do some damage here. And now we see another point to rook c5. Rook takes knight. Now sacking back the exchange allows this pawn to be taken, and that just kind of clears a lot of wood from the board, which makes white's task much simpler. Of course, it would be very nice to exchange bishops. Again, that would make life a lot easier for white. So therefore e5. Bishop came back to c3. Now that queen is guarding the rook. Queen takes h3. And now I really like the way that Vincent handles this. So he takes on e5. Fine. Check. Bishop h6. King c3. King is actually safe here on c3. I mean, it might just duck back here at some moment. But anyway, black has to deal with this threat. So f6. Now this is nice. Queen c7. And bishop d4. So this is actually very carefully played. So what's the point? Well, the bishop covers f2. And you can see that black's queen has nowhere really very sensible to go. You see all these squares are covered. Basically it's in a box and it's not coming out. So that's beautifully played. King h6 doesn't make any difference. a4. So the threat is just to push the pawn all the way down. Bishop f8. Well, he's maybe looking to do this, but queen d8 is a good move. So that protects the bishop. Hits this one, hits this one. So the bishop had to come back. Now queen d6, same problem. That queen still controls crucial squares, and black's queen is not coming out. And in fact here, black resigned. There is simply nothing to do. I don't know, g5, I mean that's a terrible move. You could just take on f6. You could just push this pawn. Absolutely nothing to do. So yeah, beautifully handled by Vincent Keymer. You know, I really like those kind of deft touches. Rook c5, really accurate move. And yeah, finally this position where black is absolutely helpless. So I'm very much looking forward to the FIDE World Cup knockout tournament starting in Goa on the 1st of November. So I'll be producing a fair few videos during that time. Thanks for watching.